Welcome back to Link by Golf. I'm your host Ross McGuire. In this episode, I'm joined by Scottish professional golfer Scott Borrowman. Scott kicked off his pro career with a debut victory in Egypt and has since become a highly respected senior teaching professional at Stirling Golf Club. Known for his expertise in power and performance coaching, Scott has helped golfers at every level improve their game. His own journey, though, hasn't been without its challenges. He's battled and overcome performance anxiety, and today he's here to share his experiences and insights. So settle in and let's hear from Scott. Scott Borrowman, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining. Really good to see you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant, Scott. And the way it starts is, where are you from and how did you get into golf?
I grew up in Dollar, just a wee village in Clackmannanshire, and
Very
I got
nice.
into golf from I'm not sure which parent probably did it, but both of them played golf. A pretty sporty family, so I was really young. I would think I was about two maybe when I first started swinging clubs about and things like that.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's been a long time.
Absolutely. And then who were the early influencers? I guess it was your mum and dad from the sound of that.
Yeah, it was mum and dad, and especially I'd say like going up to golf course with my dad quite a lot. Dollar was, it was it was an 18 hole. It's now been cut down to 9 hole, closed a few years ago. But
Okay.
going up and like there was no, you never had to like wait to get on the course, so we just used to walk up whenever,
Uh-huh.
and had kind of a wee village club. You had free reign to do what you wanted almost. So we always used to go and play
Brilliant.
6 holes and have a bit of fun.
And so is it just dollar you tend to play up until a certain
So
age?
yeah, so when I was, I lived like I don't know, 5-10 minute walk from the course. So I used to just walk up and play there and just playing whatever you could play and playing with friends. Most of my friends, my sort of circle of friends, never really played golf, so it was always kids that were slightly older. Like I've got two older sisters, and I would say I would play with people who were more in their years and stuff like that. And then just kind of grew up playing at Dollar, and then like junior opens and stuff like that as I started to get a little bit better. So it was great
Hmm.
fun. It was really good. I kind of took it for granted at the time. You just used to walk up into the golf course, and if someone was on the first tee, imagine having to wait 5 minutes for someone to tee off. We would just walk up the course and go into the third, which is too old fun. Play anywhere you wanted. So it was kind of like a free reign to do what you wanted up there. It was great.
Brilliant. So when did it become apparent that you'd a good bit of talent for playing golf yourself?
Um, it's hard, it's really hard to say. I would say I was really sporty growing up, so I would most sports I could pretty much take to, and I played a lot of them.
Okay.
I would, I think I got my first handicap when I was about 9, I think. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I know it was like about, I'm going to say about 32, something like that.
Okay.
And one of my first events was like um, like the county stroke play, which was at Dollar, like the junior stroke play, which was, the top 8 or 16, I can't even remember, would qualify for like the match play stages, but you would have a
Uh-huh.
handicap and a scratch.
All right. Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I had like a net 56 in one of my first. And the funny thing was, I was 9, 10 at the time probably, and I qualified because of my score. I qualified for the scratch. Like wherever you qualified, you went into. So I think I was the last scratch qualifier.
Wow.
And I played. Like, there was a guy called John Maxwell who was really, really good when we were growing up. He's played at Tilly
Uh-huh.
Allen. He's like Callum Macaulay age.
Right. Okay.
Those two were, I think I'm gonna say he was. If he wasn't a plus handicapper, he would have been about scratch. And obviously, I was probably cut 15 shots for shooting a net 56. And I played him at Tillicoutre in a 9 holer. I got beat. I think it was 8-7.
What was
Um,
a learning
and I won. Do
experience?
you know what? I won one hole. I hold like a 50 footer for a par or something like that. I won a hole, and I remember just like fist pumping. I was like, yeah. And even better than that, like I'm 5'8", I'm tiny, and I've been tiny my whole life. I remember putting a flag back in, and it was like, do you know what? It was one of those long flags where someone could see over a hill, and I could barely get, it was like I could barely get it in. I'm pretty sure John gave me a hand getting it in, so it was really, really funny. But that's one of my first memories of like competitive golf, if you want to call it
That's brilliant. So you're trying to give the flag the full-on ram into the hole and you can hardly lift it.
that. Can't even pick the damn thing up.
Brilliant. And then, that's a great experience. So how did you balance your practice and competition and stuff at that age and as you
Oh God.
progressed?
I mean, like that was just like go and just play golf, play golf, play golf, just keep playing. And I think probably my dad and mum like probably spotted that I was doing quite well. Like I was just going to play golf, like it didn't really matter what was going on.
Uh-huh.
And I think they kind of probably spotted it. In terms of like lessons, I didn't really do any, like like I run a junior academy at Stirling, and there was nothing like that back then. You would maybe go and get a lesson off a pro.
Uh-huh.
And I think my first one was maybe off Craig Lee, but I couldn't
Right.
tell you how old I would have been. Maybe about 10 or 11, maybe
Yeah.
at Glenbervie Golf Club.
Okay.
Um, and like I can't even really remember. I remember just like I'm fiercely competitive. You can ask anyone. Like I always have been. And I kind of just I think I just wanted to get better.
Uh-huh.
And I probably was quite good and just started to sort of progress. And I remember, I got to like maybe 12 and I started to hit the ball a bit further and it just became a little bit different. Like I was able to carry over that sort of stream or over that bunker. And I was like, God, last year I was never able to do that. So
Yep.
um, just little things like that. And then I think one of the first times that I don't know how old it is, but remember the Drummoy Golf Centre used to be the national golf centre. There was a skills challenge thing that I'm going to presume it was maybe Scottish Golf that ran it,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't win it, but I did all right. It was things like hit your 50-yard shot through these cones and then hit it this driver and all that, and I did quite well from memory, but I didn't win, and I remember being like really miffed I didn't win. But the sort of good thing at the end was like I got this really nice Nike golf hat that like said
Oh,
like
there you go.
on the side it said like skills test, whatever
Oh,
the
even
year was.
better. There
So
you
like
go.
one of those things you go about with that on, like yeah, I played in that, I'm good enough to get into.
Like having the bag tags.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. So then your amateur days, I mean, what were some of the achievements that you're proudest of at that sort of
Um,
age and then moving forward?
so like representing your country is always a good one, and
Uh-huh.
I did that at pretty much every level, all the way through. I think my first national title was the under-16s um, at oh God, Rathole Park.
Oh, you won at Rathel.
Yeah, I won at Rathole.
Nice. Lovely
Yeah.
little course, isn't it?
Do you know what? I've never been back. I've never been back. It's all I
Wow.
remember is the clubhouse being this like amazing like castle kind of idea. I don't
Yeah,
know if
it's
it
a
still is like
beautiful
that. That's
place.
what I
Yeah,
remember. But I hold a
yeah.
wedge in the last hole for a
Well, that'll
two to
help.
win. I
Wow.
won from Paul O'Hara.
Oh, no way. Paul.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry, Paul. He's done better than me though. So
I don't know. He ended up with me caddying for him a couple of times, which I think I enjoyed more than he did. But anyway, there you
I
go.
mean, when he gets going, he's some player. Like he really is, and he's always there. Just never,
Yeah.
like never. He always did, obviously the PGA stuff, and he's been out in America a few times, but he's always round about the sort of leaderboard. Just never gives anything away,
Yeah,
except
yeah,
that day.
absolutely. Aye, that day. And then, so, and what about other national events from there? I mean, that was a great
um,
achievement.
so just I never won. I don't think I won another junior one. I got to like the semis of the Scottish boys.
Uh-huh.
I actually, so like you said, you'd mentioned Wallace just before we started here. Wallace was like, Wallace growing up was like this like freak of golf that's just like hit it as far as anyone and was just brilliant. And I actually played with him. This must have been pre me winning or post, sorry, me winning the under 16s because I played with him at the Champion of Champions in Leven.
Oh yeah.
And like I think I won that when I was 15, so I'm guessing I was either 15, maybe 16 at the time, and I had the shanks, like it was just horrendous, like I just couldn't, yeah, exactly.
Oh
And
dear.
the scores were mid 80s pretty much every time I had an iron, it was just like a scuttle on the ground to the right hand side. So I shot mid 80s. I didn't, I turned up at a tournament, and I remember speaking to my dad, and this was kind of still going on. I was still shanky. I couldn't do anything. He was like, "What are we going to do?" And I
Wow.
was like, I'm just going to stand really far away from the ball and just swing as hard as I possibly can and see what happens. And ironically, I got to the semi-finals. I mean, I'd love to have seen a video from back then because I must have been standing like, a mile from the ball. It was just anything to not hit the heel.
Happy Gilmore
And
stuff with a hockey stick.
yeah, and the thing is, Wallace, if he didn't win, he got really close that year, and he beat me
Uh-huh.
by, I don't know, I'm gonna say 40 shots over the space, maybe more. And then I beat him the next week, and then got beat off Paul Doherty.
Wow. There you
So
go.
yeah, yeah, I've
Yeah.
had a pretty up and down golf career, that's for sure.
Brilliant.
Other like I won the youths, I won the Scottish youths. I think I was maybe 19 at the time at Erskine.
Brilliant.
Played pretty well, and
Good course.
then
It's tough, eh?
yeah, no, it was like I was like obviously I do kind of speed stuff now, and that's probably where I was starting to get like quite long. Like I'd always been relatively long as a junior, and then I kind of noticed at Erskine I hit a few really big like, and I was hitting it straight. It made it much easier.
Yeah.
That's I kind of noticed I was quite long at that time, and then so when was that? That'd have been probably 20. I was maybe 19.
Mhm.
I was at Stirling Uni and then kind of just like tailed off. I didn't really do very much and then sort of drifted away from the game a little bit.
Okay.
And then came back to it. I started working with Gregor Monks. I just had a really bad time and just been at uni and not really probably focusing as much as I should have.
Yeah.
And then came back to golf. I was a bit lost and I started doing a bit of work with Gregor and started to get it back again and then got into the national teams and stuff like that again. So it was pretty good. Enjoyed
Wow.
it anyway. Won a few like stroke play things, and it was just I don't know. That was quite a long time ago now. It feels. um, but then started playing for the national team again, and I was working at the time for a removal company, but I think I was at a really lucky time. Like we used to go on these amazing trips. I didn't do all of them because I was working, but go to
Uh-huh.
like South Africa for like a month and go to Dubai for a month, and it's just obviously they don't get that kind of. They're not as lucky as I was back then.
Yeah.
We got access to pretty much anything you wanted, I would say.
Wow.
Um, and I think it has changed a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Like Scottish golf is wherever it is. I'll be honest, I don't follow it that much, but
Uh-huh.
they, I just remember like you basically got treated like a tour pro. You got clubs, you got balls, you got access to S&C. You went on massive trips. You went everywhere. It was great. It was like it must have been the Goldilocks era. You got everything you really need.
And it was actually, I think Nike were involved at one point, weren't they, for clubs and stuff as well?
Yeah, so like Night were involved. They did some contracts in terms of like like you would get clubs and like I had some TaylorMade support and then I got some Callaway support and
Uh-huh.
you got some funding from the Scottish Golf Aberdeen Asset were a really big sponsor at that point as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and who else? Johan Rupert used to go to what's it called? Leopard Creek.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah, so I mean, like, no excuse to not make it.
One experience that
Other
is,
than
never
sometimes
mind
maybe
what
just
you
not
make
quite
of it.
there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, it was great. Honestly, like, got to travel the world playing golf.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's before you turned pro as well.
Yeah, it was before I turned, turning pro is a little bit harder, especially when kind of suffered a little bit when I turned pro, but um,
And
we'll
what
get
was
into
that?
that at some point, I'm sure.
Well, I was going to say, let's just jump straight in. What was the transition like for you?
So the transition from from amateur to pro, my first event, I won it. So in theory, really easy, but it wasn't like a high standard of event. But I still won it. It was out in, I thought I was going to say Turkey there, Egypt, and it was great. Just I think it was like a 3 week trip,
So was
and
that
won that.
the EPD tour or something at
No,
that
it was
time?
called the Mediterranean Tour. I'm not even sure if it works anymore, if it's
Oh, okay.
functional. It did do for a few years. But kind of, the EPD, they played, I think they played a couple of the same courses anyway.
Right.
So in terms of the transition, it was dead easy. In terms of like, I just played golf and I won, and it was like, oh, this is brilliant. Like, what do
What's
you
the
do?
problem here?
Yeah. So, and I think prior to that, I think I got to second stage of Q. That was I finished second at first stage of Q school. Got to second stage, and I did some like Sky Sports did this. It was called the Hard Knocks of Q school,
Uh-huh.
um, and they're just looking for like stories. And I'd kind of drifted away from the game, and I hadn't played well, and then came back and played for Scotland, and
Yeah.
then finished second at the Roxburgh, and then went out to Spain and had cameras following you for a wee bit, and went to my work and stuff. Um, and it didn't work out. I played very poorly at second stage. I think I missed by maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 shots probably.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I decided, like, because I felt like I'd taken my C game there. Now, 5 or 6 shots is a lot, and it's only second stage. But I really did feel like I was like, God, I was really bad those few days. I think it was an easy course, but I maybe shot, I don't know, 8, 9 under, something like, I can't remember. It was something like that, but I really did feel like poor, and I was like, God, if I'd played well, like that would have been a canter, and I
Yeah.
just didn't have it. And I went there, and I knew I wasn't playing particularly well. I was just struggling with a couple of things. And then I came back, and I was like, I think, I spoke to my parents, like, I think I want to turn pro. I think, I've watched some guys out there playing who are obviously very, very good, like all, people have qualified, but I was like, I didn't feel out of my depth, other than the
Uh-huh.
fact that my bad golf wasn't very good, but my good golf would have made it there. So I then decided to turn pro and then won my first event. Um, and then it was like Euro Pro qualifying and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
So I won the pre-qualifying for that, and then I can't remember what it was. Frilford, I think it was. I qualified. I did play really poor again, but I qualified and got my, your tour card for the Euro Pro, if you want to call it that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then started playing. But then it kind of I started to struggle a little bit.
Okay.
I not badly. I just didn't play very well. Golf is a really fickle sport, and I think the guys at that time at the top of the Euro Pro, they were still very, very good golfers. They're really, when
Yeah.
someone's on, they're on. It's the way I would describe it. And I'm not
People
saying that they
forget,
win
like,
at any
Tyrrell
level, but
Hatton came through
yeah,
Europro
yeah,
and
absolutely.
lots of
And I'm
guys
not,
like that.
yeah, and I'm not saying that they would win like like Challenge Tour, but they would be competing. They would be playing. When good golfers play well, they play well. And I just didn't really play very well, and I just put it down to like first season.
Uh-huh.
You just, I'd kind of kept my card by the end of the year, but I was really toiling. I wasn't playing well. I wasn't very comfortable. I wasn't enjoying it, but I was struggling.
Uh-huh.
And I think, I turned pro a little bit older, and not that I was old, but I was older. Friends are starting to like go away from uni and get like proper jobs, and like you've got a
Yeah.
pathway, and I'm just like, I've just spent £1,000 to go and play down at wherever it was, and I've made £8. So it's a tough one, and you can't. It's not the kind of tour that you would stay on.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of stagnated a little bit, I would say. And then the next year, I had my card, but I played and I was like really bad.
Uh-huh.
And it was just one of these things that I could never put there was a mental issue definitely in terms of like confidence and trust, and there was probably technical errors as well. But I was like, right, I'll go to Q school, like European Tour Q school at the Roxburgh, and I was 3 under after 9, playing really really good. Have you played the Roxburgh
Uh-huh.
before? I
No,
teed
but I
off
heard
the
good
10th.
stories about it.
Yeah, I teed off the 10th, and it was, I mean, it was the yips basically off the tee. The only way I describe it was like I've said this to a million people. I'm very open about it. It was like a bolt of lightning just hit me, and I was like, oh my, when you hit a shot, and I was like, what on earth
What
was
was
that?
that? Yeah.
5 balls later, I was still standing on the tee. I just couldn't hit the ball forward. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so I think I came back in about 50, might even be worse than that. And like from that day, I would say to everyone, like I've never been the same golfer since that tee shot off the 10th, which is really
Wow.
weird, but it's true. Like I was a wreck after the game.
My goodness.
The two guys I was playing with, I felt terrible for them because like, I mean, it was like unbelievable. You've never seen shots like this, and only like the people that I've played golf with you really appreciate some of the shots that I was actually hitting. Like they are unbelievably bad. Um, and yeah, I then played 9 holes the next day, and it was just like, it was the same. I was like, sorry guys, I've got to go, and I remember just being in tears in the car, just talking to it was my girlfriend, now my wife, and I was like, I can't really describe what's happened. Like I don't really know what's happened. And then that was it. I tried to play through that winter and tried to get back to golf, but I just couldn't. It was impossible. I was too far
Yeah.
gone.
Wow. But that led you into a transition and you
Yeah,
moved then into coaching.
yeah.
So there
So
was a positive from it, right?
well, yeah.
As tough
That's
as
how
it was and is.
exactly. So I started working with a different coach, and like just before I kind of I went to get my Europro card again. I was working with a coach, Mark Loftus, and my swing was looking like I've got an old video of it, and I was like, "God, that looks really good."
Yeah.
And it was completely irrelevant. Like I could have worked with the Butch Harmon. When I stood on the first tee with any kind of pressure, like it was game over. And it's funny because the 2 days before I went to this Q school, I played with Mark. He was working at Caldwell at the time, and I hit the ball pretty good. I hit some really nice shots, and I was like, God, I feel quite good. I feel relatively confident. But there's this like kind of, I just see there's this little devil just sitting on your shoulder, like,
A
are
little
you
bit of
really?
doubt.
Are you really that? And I was like, from a technical point of view, it was good enough to shoot any score. And then the first tee shot was at the Carrick. It went like 100 yards left, and I was like, yeah, that's it.
Wow.
So that's where it kind of stemmed from. And then who I now work for, Kenny Monaghan, at Stirling, I'd played with him in Dubai about, I don't even know how long before, maybe 4 years before.
Hmm.
Um, and he put up an advert for a job. One of my friends texted me about it and was like, would you do your PGA? And I was like, I don't really know. Like it was still so raw because I've just been like the last few
Yeah, of
years has
course.
been building up to playing, and then you're like, well, what do you do now? Like,
Uh-huh.
I kind of thought about it for a while, and I hummed and hawed, and I'd spent so much time in golf. I think, I'd worked with some of the best coaches in the world. I'd played some of the most amazing golf courses in the world. I'd traveled the world. I was like, I've probably got some information, though it's tainted right now. I must have something in here that I can pass on or I can use or whatever it might be.
Uh-huh.
And and that's kind of where it stems from. So I applied for the job, and he's like, just pretty much offered me on the spot,
Brilliant. That's
which is
awesome.
great. And then that's that was, I don't know, maybe 7 years, 8 years, 7 years ago, 8 years.
Uh-huh.
Um, and now we're here. But my speed stuff kind of stemmed from like I couldn't hit the ball.
Right.
like I physically, like you could maybe play 3 holes and I would look like a decent golfer, and then I would just hit one that was like you can't describe it really. It's not a golf shot.
Yeah.
And I played at Stirling because I joined him at Linlithgow, and then I moved
Uh-huh.
with him to Stirling. He got the head pro job at Stirling, which was a really good job, and it was closer to where I lived. And wanted, I was like a bit nervous at the start. Is he going to take us? And he was like, "Yeah, do you want to come with?" And I was like, "100%, way
Yeah.
better, much at home, all that kind of stuff."
Stirling's a great golf course.
Yeah, no, it's good. And I played in there's like at the start of every year is the captain and versus the vice captain, like a 9 hole match. And he's like,
Uh-huh.
"Do you want to play?" And at this point, I hadn't really, I'd played, but like a bounce game with a mate, I can get away with. I can not be too nervous.
Uh-huh.
I remember I just hit this tee, like I got a couple of holes in, I just hit this tee shot, and it was like a, I don't even know what it was, like a half top thing, and I was like, I'm supposed to, and what went through my head as I was walking to my ball was like, I'm supposed to be a professional who's going to be touting business, if you want to call it, to these people. And I've literally hit it 80 yards off this effing tee. And I was just embarrassed. And I was like, something has to change, be
Uh-huh.
it anything, like just anything. So I think it was that day I went home and I was like, what can I do? And I was like, right, I'm going to buy a set of speed sticks. And that was it. I just bought a
Wow.
set and I was just like, right, I need to do something. And I was like, okay, what can you do? And I was like, you're relatively athletic, you're relatively strong. Let's get fast. Let's just try it. Let's have a bit of fun. Let's just like
Brilliant.
go into a hole and just swing a club where you don't care where the ball goes. And now, if I play now, if you ever get a chance to see me play, I literally don't care where the ball goes. I've got no interest in it. I'm just trying to get it as far down the hole as I possibly can. Um, and then, varying success from very good scores to very bad scores. But I don't have that deep anxiety that like because my decision's made up. If you see me
Mm.
standing with it, if you had a sort of like a script of what's going on in my head as I'm standing over the golf ball with a driver, I'm just like I'm going to be hitting in last here, and this is going to go really, really, really far, and that's my decision. So it makes it easy for me because I don't care. So that's where it stemmed from. And then I kind
That's
of got into
awesome.
it, and
I love that. That
I
is
was like,
brilliant.
I kind of got into it. I started training, and I was like, oh, I could get quite fast. And then COVID hit, and it was just a bit like
And
it was.
you're doing it, just to say, you're doing this way before COVID and all of this caught fire, right?
Yeah, so I was kind of doing it maybe like tail end of 18,
Wow.
um,
That's super
and
early compared to a lot of people.
yeah, so like again, like this wasn't a business. This was like I need to be able to do
Yeah.
something because
Yeah, yeah.
it's a sport that I love, but I can't play.
Uh-huh.
So I then just started doing that and started training and getting faster and faster and faster and just having a bit of fun with it. And then I was like, I wonder if people would like pay me to help them like hit it further because I'm kind of getting all right at this. I started reading loads of stuff about biomechanics and I spoke to a few experts and then COVID hit and just pre like COVID, nobody had ever heard of oh God, what was it when you got paid at furlough? Like never heard of it. Like I
Yeah.
just remember I was like, I'm gonna lose my job, and my wife we literally just found out that we were pregnant with our first child, and I was like, oh my god. And then even worse, my bank got so I like in preparation for I don't know Armageddon. I didn't know it was gonna happen. I applied for a credit card. I was like, well, if I don't have enough money to for this kid, like what's going to happen? So I applied for a credit card, and I don't know what happened, but basically, whenever I was doing it, someone must have been either watching, like hacked my emails or something like that, and they cleared my bank account as well.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah,
Wow.
so I was pregnant with my first. Well, I wasn't. My wife was pregnant with first child, and then I was like, right, fine. And then it was my email just like a million emails just pinged through at once, and I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. And my wife was like, oh, just check your bank, and I was like, oh, I was like, there's nothing here. And she's like, haha, and I was like, there is zero in my bank right now.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, so got it back after I think it was like 72 hours, but it was a bit of a panic at that point.
I bet it was. Wow.
Yeah. And then furlough got announced, and I just trained in the garden, swung sticks, swung clubs. I went and checked in the studio at work and did, the odd hour session here and there. And I was like, right, I'm getting quite fast. This is quite good. And that's when I was like, right, Project 200 is coming. So
Wow.
I put in this massive effort to go from, let's say 180s, mid 180s to like 200. I just got as strong as I possibly could, like virtually killed myself in the gym every second day, did some speed stuff, did some coaching, and then I was like building up to, and I don't know if you've seen the video of me hitting 200, but like
Yeah,
I was,
it's pretty
I was,
interesting.
yeah, I was going for it. And do you know the funny thing is, so, um, I, so we, this was, when was that? I can't even remember, but I was videoing. So in a session I started to see I was like quite fast. I was like, right, I'm going to start videoing this because I think I'm going to get it. And I started hammering away, and I was like 199, 199.3 and all. And I was like, oh, it's coming, it's coming.
Come on.
And then I hit it and I went mental. And I was like, this is like whatever. And unbeknown to me, I don't know what happened, but my wife had phoned me and it had stopped recording.
Oh no.
So I was buzzing, jumping around. Like that wasn't even the first sale, but I was buzzing, I was jumping around, going absolutely mad. And then I was like, where's it gone? What's happened? Like, and then I realised I had a missed call, and I was gutted. And then I started back again, and
Oh
I
no
couldn't get
way.
back because I'd obviously had the big adrenaline, then the massive dump,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and 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 it like I don't know. I couldn't. I was like, and I was like, I'm never going to get this again. So the celebration you saw was the second one.
Right.
It was almost like a bigger one because I was like,
Must
I
have
might
felt
never
even
get
better.
this again. I might never get here again. So, um, I that was the second one, but it was good. I made it. It was good fun. It was good fun. I really enjoyed it. Do you know what? Like furlough was terrible for some people. I totally get it. But for me, like, I got to do a little bit of that. My first child was en route, and it was like
Brilliant.
quite an exciting time, but worrying time, but it was exciting at the same time. And I just put a project that I could get some time into, and I just blasted it and went for it. It was good fun.
Yeah, and I mean, the golf geeks listening, so because we've possibly lost some of the other audience as well talking about speed, but
Yeah, of
I mean,
course,
it's
of
the
course.
reason I wanted you on. But what kind of club head speed are you getting to a driver to produce that sort of ball speed?
So like kind of, I use a GC quad, so
Uh-huh.
you get the whole quad and TrackMan. People like, oh, this one's better, and I'm like, I don't really care which one you use, just use that one and measure off that one. It
Yeah,
doesn't
and
matter.
stay consistent.
But you kind of like 200s, like 138s, that kind of number. The fastest I ever got to was about 140 point something, but
Wow.
I couldn't even remotely get near the club face. But it was good fun. Depends
My
on what you're
goodness.
measuring. You measure ball speed or you measure club head speed. Don't try and pursue both as such. Maybe work on one or the other.
And so if your average golfer walks in the door, when you're teaching people, what do you typically see? And I don't mean for somebody going after speed, but just a
Yeah.
lesson if you're coaching them with a driver, what kind of speeds are
Um,
most people
like
knocking out?
as in, what do I see most common faults, or what do
No,
I?
what kind of speed are people swinging a golf club at typically
Oh, right. So, I
compared to
mean, this
that?
varies so much. Like it does, it really does. And you get some golfers who are like really, really quick. Like I was teaching a guy last night, and like he can swing his 7 iron 103 miles an hour without doing anything. But he then can't really translate that into a driver, so he gets his driver at maybe 112 or something like that. So he kind of has a bit of a missing link sequencing. He's not quite getting right, so he can get a little
Uh-huh.
bit more out of it. But generally, like I would see, your average kind of like category one golfer, I would say ranges anywhere from maybe 95 to really fast.
Uh-huh.
But you get some 25 handicappers who are can swing 150 miles an hour.
Oh
They're
yeah,
just not
absolutely.
really sure of what's going on when they make contact. But
Yeah.
the ability to move your body like that is such an advantage if you harness it. That's probably the hardest part. But a lot of time, when I speak to people about generating speed, they kind of assume that it's like the 200 mile an hour swing that they've seen on my social media, and I'm like, no, it's not that. It's like you train up to that, and then you just come back down the level. So I can go out and play at around about 190 and look relatively comfortable. Not that I'm going to be a great golfer, but it's like I would say it's at pretty high effort level on the course. Like I reckon I could probably, if I'm just playing a normal round of golf, you can maybe dish one out at 195 or something like that, which is really fast. But I wouldn't be able to sit at 200 on the golf course, and I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't think I could. I don't think you can play golf at that kind of speed.
And just to give people context, Rory McIlroy's drive at 14 at Pebble Beach the other week, I'm pretty sure it was clocked at 189 ball speed.
Yeah, so that's like mega fast. Like him and Bryson, like arguably the two best drivers in the game just now, probably. And they're both knocking around about that. I just literally shared the video of Bryson doing some speed stuff. He was up at 202, so he's got significantly more in the tank as and when he needs it. But like just your kind of normal golfer, anywhere from whatever handicaps they are, most people can add a little bit, or if they don't improve delivery or shape or whatever it is they want to, they can add a little bit of speed as well. It's always nice adding a little bit of speed and then bringing back and feeling like there's a little bit more control there. Never met anyone that's reached their athletic potential. I've never seen anyone that's like, oh, you're at 100% now. It just doesn't exist.
But I think what's interesting what you're saying there, Scott, and you see this with a lot of the pros as well now, and they talk about it, and even Bryson talks about it. The purpose of getting for him like to 220 ball speed isn't to stay at 220 ball speed, it's to make it easier to swing at 195.
Of course.
And have that advantage with a much more controlled swing, right?
Of course. And you have to kind of push your ceiling up. If you want to sit faster on the golf course. So I say to everyone, like, when you hit PBs in the studio or when you're practicing, like, fantastic. That is the goal. You won't be sitting at that speed when you play golf. Just tell you that right now. You won't do it, and I wouldn't expect you to do it. And because you need, you're getting kind of hyped up and amped up when you're in the studio or going fast. But the goal is that, let's say you were 100 miles an hour, just for a number, when you were maxing out, you probably sat at 90 to 95 miles an hour on the golf course. A tighter hole, you might even get a little bit less, where you don't feel quite as confident. But the goal would be push up to 110, like get that number up, and then try to sit at 100 on the golf course. It's a massive difference. If everyone thinks that you just need to stand up and smash it as far as you possibly can. No, I said that earlier on because if I don't do that, I won't see this ball again. So it doesn't really matter. And it's the honest truth. It's fine. I can still play golf. Like, I've got some decent scores in the last wee while. I can always play against mates and stuff. But it's like I can't try and control a flight, if that makes sense. I'm not gonna I'm just gonna peel one up off of the left here. I'm like, no, but I can hit it 350 if you want. I can do that. That's I hit a nice wee delicate cut up the left side.
It's an interesting talent to have. That's let me just fly this water at 330. Just make it easy.
And if I didn't carry it, I would stand there until I did. I'd do a tin cup as well. Like, right, I'm getting this over no matter what. Don't worry about the score.
Yeah, I was mucking about with trying to do bouncers on one of the sort of ponds at the course I played at the other day. That was quite entertaining. Trying to make it bounce up, and I'm like, the guys that are doing this are definitely better at this than me.
Going at 16 at Augusta, going for the skimmer on the hole.
Yeah, that's not an easy shot, let me tell you.
No, well, do you know what? I've never really practiced it, but I might give it a go one day.
Well, you could try with driver and see if you could do the knock it over a 330.
I can hit a driver that low. That's the thing. I can hit
that's
it ridiculously high. So
yeah, but then in terms of that, Scott, I mean, you've talked about your own golf, but what are you seeing from people? And a little bit related to the speed, but what are you seeing people's reactions being when you're working with them now, when they start looking at golf in a slightly different way?
Yeah, so I mean, I would probably judge myself as like more like I try to get people's bodies moving a little bit better if I can. I
Uh-huh.
obviously focus on the club, you have to, but I generally try to get the movement a little bit better, get the pivot a little bit better, recentering, all this kind of stuff is stuff that I would teach a lot. I feel like when I get the body moving better for golfers, that the club follows.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I do think that a lot of golfers just get tied into where the club, like looking at the position of the club and where it is, and oh, I need to get it here at P2, I need to get this at P6, and I'm like, yeah, that's obviously got relevance. I totally get that, but I would much prefer watching people move better, like having a bit of rhythm, having better timing,
Uh-huh.
and I do a lot of that with golfers. I find it I seem to get the more out of people that way. Just feeling the proper movements of the joints and how they're supposed to move in a range and when they move. And I think once you understand it, the club just sort of settles usually in a slightly better place.
Uh-huh.
Um, I love like stepping drills. I love all that kind of stuff. I think it's got a real benefit to a lot of golfers. I would say I teach a lot of people who are far too static than move too much.
Uh-huh.
And if they move too much, it's generally just like refining the movement rather than reducing the movement. So that's
Yeah,
the
and
way I would try to look at it.
the pod, for our purposes, isn't out in video or anything, but when you're talking about a stepping drill, you're literally talking about people taking a golf club back and then stepping forward with their left foot as they
Yeah,
hit it, right?
yeah. Like,
Or the opposite.
I always like. If you probably had a lesson with me and you don't move very well, I've talked about you punching me in the face, and I was like, if you were going to punch me in the face, what would you do? I said, you've got a free hit here, all right. I would say you would go back and you would go forward.
Yeah.
In the simplest possible way. Now there's far more to it than that, right? But in the simplest possible way, is like you go back and forward. And you see some golfers doing the total opposite. They go forward and then come back, and I was like, I'd probably willing to take a punch off you if you fall back right now and see if you could hurt me or knock me over. I'm gonna reckon you probably wouldn't. And just like getting an understanding of that. And once you can, even like I get people to like throw it. I was like, throw this ball against that net and tell me what you're trying to do. And they would never go into like, oh, I'm going to lift my arm up here and I'm going to extend it this way. Or just like, I'm just going to go back here and then I'm going to step and I'm going to launch it. And I was like, okay, fine. So we're at that place. I was like, if you're going to hit a baseball, what would you do? If I'm going to throw this ball up and you hit it, what would you do? And you're like, oh, I'd have the bat up here and I would kind of step. And I'm like, right, okay. So we've got a natural athletic movement that you're just not using for whatever reason just now. We need to try and change the story a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And once you get that, I find it much easier. Like golf is inherently people go for technical, slow movements. And I'm not saying don't do that. I teach that as well. But I just feel like once you learn to move well, it becomes way, way easier.
And even
People can disagree with me. You know what? I'm thick-skinned. I don't really care, and I'm happy to disagree with people and people not want to listen to what I've got to say. Absolutely no issue at all. But that would be my philosophy.
I think I certainly agree, Scott, and I can tell you why. After or during COVID, I definitely lost a lot of speed, and before that, I'd got very obsessed about looking at my swing, seeing where my positions are,
Yeah.
going to the practice area loads, not necessarily playing many golf holes, and over the last, I guess, 2 years, I've been trying to wean myself off of that, and
Mm-hmm.
what I committed to was off the tee, aim left, smash it. That's
Sounds
that's
good.
literally the thought,
Yeah,
and it'll
there you
cut,
go.
right? And then the rest of it is I go and play 9 holes if I can, rather than
Yeah.
just practicing. And I
Yeah.
hardly hit any balls now in comparison to what I did before. And if I do hit balls, it's usually on a range, and I'm trying to get a target as a speed to
Yeah.
take up
Yeah, of
my
course.
record in inverted
Yeah,
commas.
yeah.
And it
But
means that
it's
I'm not
engaging.
necessarily thinking about technique again. It's
Yeah,
great.
it can be engaging as well.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, you could imagine like I'll see people practicing at the club or a driving range or whatever it might be, and it's like I'd love to just walk down and just say to every single golfer, like, what are you working on? And there'll be some very good golfers there who are saying, oh, I'm doing this and I'm working on this. And I'm like, well done, that's really, really good. With other people, it's like, I'm just kind of hitting balls. And I was like, you just kind of you might be wasting your time here. Time's valuable.
Absolutely.
If you can find a way to make your practice maybe more engaging, like, I don't know, just make it a bit more like you were when you were a kid sometimes. Obviously have times when there's technical practice, but a perfect example was like I wasn't a great putter. And I would say I'm an okay putter now, not that I play much, but I just couldn't really practice it. It didn't engage me. And that's what I found really difficult. So I started to do I did like 10-minute alarms. So I used to practice my putting every day, and I just do 3 10-minute alarms. So 10 minutes of technical practice. I just had my phone in my pocket, just praying for this alarm to go off. I was like, go off, because this is so mind-numbingly boring. Even although I know it was giving me some benefits.
Wow.
So I would do like 10 minutes of technical, 10 minutes of start line, 10 minutes of green reading. I was like, thank God. Now, if you'd said to me, go and hit, I could be about like go and hit 500 9-irons at that target, I'd be like, easy, no bother.
Yeah, no
I'll get
problem.
engaged.
Yep.
I enjoy the movement side of it. But when it was
I think
stationary,
you and me
like
both.
chips and stuff, go and hit a wee spinner. But I just found putting, I got really bored at.
Uh-huh.
And little things like that. I think, like I was saying, if you walk along the range, like there'll be people there just hitting ball. Like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm hitting balls. I'm like do something. Go and hit me a 9-iron that curves 100 yards from right to left, or engage your mind a little bit, change it up. Don't
Yeah.
go for 100 balls, go for 50 balls, and take do routine work, do something. Because like I said, time's valuable, and I feel like sometimes you could watch people hitting balls and just like, I think they just wasted their time there. Unfortunately, wasted their time, wasted their money. You need to make something like stick, something last.
Well, I mean, one of the things for me is, and I'm certainly not as good at it now as I used to be, but can you hit a high draw? Can you hit a low cut? Can you do that on command? And I don't mean like Tiger hitting windows, right? I'm just
Yeah,
talking, can you just do it? Can you hit
yeah,
a high draw with virtually any club in the bag?
yeah. Can you?
Because if you
Yeah,
can't,
absolutely.
you've got something you can work on, at
Of
least as a
course,
target.
and like I'm very much kind of, I like people to try to not muck around with the ball too much unless required. So if you're
Hmm.
good, let's say it's a high draw, like if you're good at hitting a high draw, like don't try and change that too much unless you absolutely have to. And I would
Yep.
always say to people, like Scott Fawcett's Decade stuff, he's massive on this, and I quite like it, and some of it people will disagree with and agree with, but if you can get really good at one shot, like you don't need to change that much. It's not that bad.
No,
Um,
I learned that when I started hitting cuts all the time. I
yeah,
suddenly
it's
saw
fine. Like, oh,
saw
you're
right
like,
to left holes. I'm
yes,
like, this is
totally,
easy. I'm cutting it into the biggest part of the fairway.
just something, because it's doing something. You're building a pattern that you can trust maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, I'm going to try and hit this like little fade, and the next tee I'm going to do this, and I'm like, see, unless you're in the top 50 in the world, like, and even then they probably can't do it every single time. So I would say get really good at one, and then you'll get good at golf, and then if
Yep.
you want to get better, add to your arsenal of shots. Um,
Absolutely.
I think that's a good way of looking at it.
I tell you, Scott Fawcett, I think it was him, pretty sure it was him, but I listened to him. He's a sort of stats guy, right?
Yeah,
Very based on stats. And I'm sure it was him that was on a podcast, and he was saying that the avoidance of three putting from distance by not ramming the ball past the hole
hmm
is incredible. So
I know.
he was basically saying get it within like a 10% radius
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
no.
length of
I
putt.
Do you
It is
know?
so freeing actually when you're
Yeah,
putting
I
to do
know.
that.
And do you know? So he's basically like let variance hit the ball close for you. Basically, it's kind of
Uh-huh.
seems to be the sort of main thing to take from it. Do you know Lou Stang? Is it Stanger,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
stats
Lou
guy?
Stagner.
So
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it was today. Could be wrong. And it was like 33 feet putt, the tour average. Now I could be wrong here. I'll need to have a look at this again. You can cut this one out, right? If it's miles off.
We'll leave it
Um,
in. We'll leave it in, Scott. We'll create some controversy.
I don't know how to word this, but he was basically saying if you put it inside, I'm going to say 6 feet left and right,
Uh-huh.
right? No, 10 feet left and right, and 6 feet, so 3 feet long or 3 feet short. Your average is you're better than a tour pro. Your average would be better than tour. I know, it blew my mind as well, and I was like, I read it very, very briefly. I was taking the boys swimming, and I like came back, and they were mum was getting something from the shop, and I was like, just saw this tweet, and I was like, when you kind of read something, I was like, did I actually read that right? And
Yeah.
then I was like, I need to get going, but I didn't do any. But I'm pretty sure, if I'm wrong, I hold my hands up, but I'm pretty sure it was, which was like unbelievable when I heard that. So get it within 3 feet long and short, so 6 feet either, 3 feet one side, 3 feet other side, and I'm sure it was 10 feet, so 5 feet right, 5 feet left.
And
Which,
you're decent. You're actually
yeah,
pretty good.
like I was like, that is terrible. Do you know if it's not?
It depends on your perception of how you judge yourself, and that's
I know,
that's huge in golf, isn't it?
absolutely. But it just that stuff like that just messes with my mind. It
Brilliant.
seems too easy. I'm like, it can't be that easy. Anyway.
So, Scott, look, you've been so generous with your time, and thanks for coming on. If
Problem.
people want to get in touch with you and chase a bit of speed, have
Yeah.
a slightly different view on how to work through their game and have some fun ultimately, how can they get in touch with you?
So any of my social media channels, Scott Borrowman. There's not many of us, thankfully. Instagram, Twitter. I coach at full time at Stirling Golf Club, and we've got a website you can go on there and find out about it. It's not a problem at all. But like, it doesn't need to be me. You know what I mean? Like, if to go after speed, and if anyone had any advice and they're saying like, what would you do if like, say, don't want to go for lessons or whatever, get into the habit of going to the range, and for 25 balls at the end of your session where you're warmed up, you're not tired, I was like, just get a wee monitor if you can. If you can't, use like Top Trace or something, and just blast balls as hard as you can. All right, and just do it twice a week. Give yourself recovery. Don't get yourself too tired. Don't do it every day because it won't work. And then track your speed in some way, ball speed, club speed, anything. All right, just do that. Do that for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, and I guarantee you'd be faster. It's almost impossible not to. If you want to develop from that, then reach out to me, another professional. Most people know about this sort of stuff now, but there is some technical stuff that you definitely need to look at. But as a general rule, if you're just looking to get a bit faster and have a bit of fun, get used to swinging the club a bit faster. Don't do it once and go, right, I'm going to be Bryson on this next tee. It won't happen. Give yourself a bit of time.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Scott, thanks so much for coming on. It's been great to talk to you, and thanks for being so open as well. Really enjoyed it.
At all. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much.
I just want to take a moment to thank Scott Borrowman for joining me. I thought Scott's insights into his journey, his coaching experiences, and his open approach to discussing overcoming performance anxiety were really inspiring. Please do remember to like and share the podcast if you enjoy it, and also leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I've got some fantastic guests lined up, and you'll be hearing from Stuart Whiteford in the next episode. Until then, thanks for listening again. Thank you. Bye-bye.